Welcome. Actually, I should get my audio, shouldn't I was bringing stuff off camera and then I just forgot to actually get stuff set up, as I started recording. Anyway, we'll try that again. So, welcome to episode 23 of Tech Over Tea. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and I need a better solution to do the intro than doing it like that. I'm basically just playing it off my phone right now, which is not a good solution. I can get something set up in software, and then I just never actually got around to doing it. I don't know why. I probably should do that. It would be much, much easier than having to, get my phone up every time and then lower the audio level. Also, the other thing I should do is probably check what episode I'm up to before I start recording. I think 22 I recorded last week. I'm gonna check it now. We're gonna do this live. No, that is the wrong website. Tech Over Tea. Here we go. I'll show you. So the latest one to come out on Library is 22. Yeah. So this is episode 23. And one thing you may have spotted, if you're watching the video version, obviously if you're in the audio version, you won't have noticed this. But on the video version, the background looks a little bit different now. So I went and basically took, I don't know why I'm pointing at it with my mouse, and you guys can't see that I'm doing that. But anyway, the background up like all around the edges, I decided to make that a bit darker. I think it looks a bit better like that. Obviously, it could still have some work. I might change the brightness of the accents. I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I might do something. I might actually just... One thing I was thinking of doing is making it so it sort of resembles my desktop theme. So my desktop theme, if you've seen my regular videos, I have like a blue accent for most things. I might do that with the lines we have here. I don't know. Might be a good idea, might not be. I'm not sure how it's going to look. I think right now it definitely does look better than what I had. I feel like the old version kind of looked... I don't know what the best way to describe it. Maybe a little bit bland. Especially if you look at, say, my channel banner. So if we look over here, I feel like this looks so much better than what I had before. Obviously, the old one didn't look bad. I was the one who picked the colors for that. It's not the problem with the artist who did it. I picked the colors for it, and they probably weren't the best color choices. I reckon what I've done now actually looks much, much better, though. And I'm probably going to continue with the same theme when I start streaming as well. I'll probably use like a modified version of this background, or maybe I'll get something else commissioned for that. I'm not entirely sure, but I really like what's going on here. Even though I've had to do a bit of modification myself, I do actually have access to the PSD files, but if you pay close attention, you might notice that there's some weird graphical problems, and that's because I didn't actually use the PSD files because obviously I'm on Linux. I had to go and modify the PNG images that were exported at the end, which means that it's not going to be perfect. It works. It's not great though. So I should go, and I've got a Windows drive. I should just go and install Photoshop on that and then go modify that instead rather than trying to deal with the PSD files. Doing it like that will probably be a bit easier, and obviously will be a bit cleaner as well because then I actually have access directly to the layers. I haven't looked at the PSD files. I'm going to assume that the layers are set up properly. If they're not, I don't know where you live, Connor, but I can very well find out where you live, and I will find you. Today, I'm drinking Dare Mocha Iced Coffee. Not sponsored by Dare. I would completely accept that sponsorship though. Dare, hit me up. I will accept payment in iced coffee. Yeah, so the modified background I think looks much better. I was thinking of doing something to my main channel as well. So if we just go have a look at that one, I will switch over in just a moment, just so I don't show anything you probably shouldn't see. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So I think the blue might be a little bit too harsh. I think it can definitely be toned down a little bit and it'll probably look a bit better. I don't know how it looks on other people's monitors, but on mine, it's a bit too saturated, and my monitor isn't really that high in saturation, so I can only imagine how bad it looks on something that isn't color calibrated properly. It probably looks pretty bad. So I'm thinking of maybe bringing this down to, I don't know, maybe a skyish blue? I'm not sure. Maybe I might, I don't know about the accents though. Maybe I'll keep the accents the same and then just lower the regular background. I'm not too sure what I'll do about that, but I will have a look. This is really great content for people who are actually just listening to the show. If you're listening, I'm sorry about that. But go check out my... Actually, go check out the video version. You'll see the new background. Go check out my library channel and also my YouTube channel, and you'll see what I mean about the, the colors. So, yeah, I'll I'll do that, and it should look a little bit better. Now, one other thing that should be a bit better is I've gone and messed with my audio a little bit. I'm just going to keep drinking this iced coffee throughout the show. It's going to break the flow of the conversation, but that's what happens when I'm by myself here. So you might notice a slight difference with the audio. I hope it's a slight improvement with the audio. So what I was doing before, I can't actually show you because I haven't got my scene set up properly. In OBS, what I was doing was I had a audio compressor, noise gate, and noise suppressor set up. Obviously, those are good things to have set up, but I had them configured in a weird way that kind of messed with the audio quality. So what I was doing, I was using the audio compressor and raising up the volume level inside of that. So I was doing basically software gain. Now the problem with software gain is it's going to introduce weird artifacts into your audio, and I wasn't a big fan of the sound I was getting, so what I decided to do, I kept the noise gate and the suppressor at the same level because you might notice if I just go silent for a second, you can probably notice that you heard literally nothing. So when the volume level is low enough, my mic basically, the input shuts out. And that's what my noise gate and the noise suppressor are doing. The noise suppressor is mainly for extra background noise, which will, if I, like tap on the table, it's not as loud as it could be. So I'll just stop talking for a second. You might have heard some of those taps, but they're much quieter than they otherwise would be. And it also will obviously affect things like keyboard taps and other things that are, I guess, just random background noise, things like that. And it just makes the audio quality a bit better. And the compressor, what that does is basically will take my audio signal and make it so if I go really quiet, if I just talk like this, what it's going to do is try to like raise up the audio level, and if I get too loud, it's going to make it so it can't go above a certain level. And the benefit of doing that is basically so, even though it might still clip if I talk too loud, it's not going to get really, really loud to the point where it can like damage your speakers or anything like that. It just makes so it, even though the audio is going to sound awful, I can still talk loudly, and it's not going to, it's not going to mess with the volume level, basically. That's pretty much what the compressor does. So regardless of how loud you talk, it tries to keep it at like roughly the same volume level, even though the original audio signal may have been recorded at a different level. And the problem with doing this, especially when you're doing software gain, is it will mess with your audio quality. So that was a long-winded way of saying what I did is instead of raising up the gain inside of the software, I raised the gain on the Blue Yeti. And also I actually moved the Blue Yeti, so I don't know why I did this. The way that I used to record with the Blue Yeti, so it's here. Actually, no, I'm just gonna move the webcam, and we're gonna. This is gonna be a bad idea. Oh no, it's stuck on something. There we go. Oh no, it's still stuck on something. There we go. This is great for the video, guys. Anyway, so what I used to do is I had the Blue Yeti down here. So if we look from where I'm sitting, the Blue Yeti would have been off to my side here. And if you know anything about Blue Yetis, you would know that's a very bad idea. So what I'm doing now, basically, I move it so it's a bit more, somewhere close to being in my face without actually covering my screen. So that's roughly where I end up having it now. So it's much closer to actually being in front of my face, which ends up causing the audio to sound hopefully a little bit better. Now, we'll see if it's actually in the frame or not. Yeah, so, and as you can notice now, it's still not in the frame. So it's in front of my face, not covering my monitor, and also not in the frame. All of the things that I like having, and it just makes the audio sound a little bit better, especially if you're using headphones. It's not as noticeable if you're using speakers, But with headphones, it can get very noticeable because you obviously have the very noticeable directional audio because it's different sound in different ear. It's not as noticeable with speakers unless you have like a proper surround sound setup, and most people probably don't have that set up for just watching YouTube videos and things like that. So having it more in front of me just makes it so the audio seems like it's, I guess, being recorded from one place. Now, the best point for it would be to have it directly in front of me. The problem with that, though, is obviously it's going to cover my monitor, which makes it very difficult to record, and also it's going to be in the frame, which means that my face is going to be covered by the microphone, which obviously you also don't want to have happen either. So this is probably the best I can get with it. Sorry for the coughing constantly. I don't know what the deal with that is. Anyway, this is probably the best spot to have it while still not being perfect. Now, the better solution would be a different microphone, but this is pretty much as good as I can do with the Blue Yeti. There might be more I can do with it. Once again, I've said this in previous episodes, but I'm pretty much a noob when it comes to audio work. I'm kind of learning stuff as I go. For a while, I didn't even know what audio filters were. So I was recording with the Blue Yeti, and I didn't have a noise gate on, didn't have a noise suppressor on, didn't have a compressor on, and for some reason, you guys still watched my videos. So you could hear like the buzzing of the microphone. Actually, you know, I'm going to go and disable the filters, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So hopefully this doesn't ruin my audio, but I cannot promise anything. So if I go disable the noise suppression and the noise gate, I don't know if you'll notice it, but there's a tiny, tiny hum that this microphone produces. Plus, you're probably also able to hear the fans of the computer. So I'll just be silent for just another moment. I don't know how well you're actually noticing that. It is picking up something inside of OBS, so the microphone is actually recognizing the noise, but you probably don't hear it that much. The problem that it produces, though, is it's just a tiny, tiny background noise that is audible. You may just not consciously perceive it. So it does mess with the audio signal just a little bit. Plus, having the noise suppressor will also deal with a bit of the echo. But part of the echo problem was also the fact that the microphone was in a weird spot, and that means it was taking longer for the audio to actually hit the microphone, whereas having it directly in front of you means that the audio trying to record is going to hit the microphone before the echo does, if that makes any sense. So the main audio signal is going to, I guess, cover up the echo that's in there. Obviously, getting rid of the echo is probably for the best, and I want to do that at some point. I don't know. Once again, I've talked about this in the past. Covering up that wall with something to, reduce the echo. The other thing I can do, which I've shown as well, is covering off this weird section, which I think actually where is most of the echo coming from. This weird section off to the side where it's like this cutout towards where the door goes, and I think that's where a lot of the echo is actually being produced, and it's not conducive to good audio. So what I mean is this section off to the side here. So you got my closet there, and then there's like this weird cutout thing before the door, and I think that's where most of the echo is actually being produced from. Plus, I also have ridiculously high ceilings, which also obviously messes with the audio as well. But I can't do much about those. Obviously, I could turn the room into like a blanket fort. To be completely honest, a blanket fort is probably the best way to reduce the echo. It's the dumbest way, and it's the cheapest way, and it's the most fun way. Basically, what I mean is, if you didn't have a childhood, what I mean by this is you make a room out of blankets and pillows. That would be a perfect way to actually deal with the audio, and it would be really bad for lighting though, just because I've got my lamp over there bouncing off the wall. Even though it doesn't look great and you have like this shadow off to the side here, I still need to do something about that. I really should go get another lamp or something to put over there. I don't know. Maybe, actually, I don't know. I'm thinking of getting a second, you probably saw it before, a second one of my really bright lamp. There's like a 2300 lumen bulb in it, LED bulb. it's not some stupidly expensive to run halogen bulb. So I've got that LED over there, and it looks stupid, but if I do it on the other side as well, that will deal with the shadow over there. But the other thing that someone has pointed out to me before, don't remember who, is get one of the RGB bulbs and then light up the section like that. That could also be fun as well. So when I remember to do that, I will do that. But as with a lot of things, I typically have, you know, more important things to be doing than just messing with my lighting like that. Another thing with the audio, I didn't realize you're not supposed to run microphones at 100% input gain or 100% input volume. So like in software, you shouldn't be running it at 100% because it's going to produce, it's going to pick up some of the, produce is probably the better word. It's going to produce some weird distortions because they're not supposed to run at 100%. How am I supposed to know this? It doesn't say anywhere on the box that you're not supposed to run a microphone at 100%. Why would I assume that? So turning it down a little bit cuts out some of that that top level clipping that you might get. One thing I want to point out, not an audio technician, I could be saying stuff that's complete bullshit, but I'm just telling you stuff that I have noticed to work. If it's all wrong and what I'm saying makes literally no sense, that would be why. But if I compare my audio to my old audio back at the old house, when I had literally no idea what I was supposed to be doing with audio, I just let my audio clip and had no idea that that was a bad thing. I thought that going into like the red range wasn't a bad thing. I don't know why I assumed that. It's a bad idea. So if you compare what I have now with what I used to have, it should be better, even though I'm just kind of stumbling along. Basically, every time I get like some free time, I'll usually look up something like how to make your Blue Yeti sound less awful, or how to improve your audio or your audio quality, your video quality. One other thing is with the video quality, I used to not use a filter on my video. So I think I've got the filter set up for this one. I know I have it for my regular content, but yes, I do. So I have a LUT applied to this. My room actually doesn't look, you know, this good. If I go and remove the LUT, this is what it actually looks like. I guess with the LUT, it probably looks closer to what it does than it would if I remove the LUT. So a LUT is basically a way to translate colors from the, I guess the color, or not color space, I can't think of a better word. Basically translate the colors being recorded by the webcam or the camera into some other sort of color space. So this is what it actually looks like with my current settings if I remove the LUT. So it's probably not a massive difference, but you can probably see that I look a bit more pale and there's a bit less color in the bed behind me, and it just doesn't look as good. Whereas if I go and enable the LUT, as you'll see, there's like a bit more color in my face. Is that desynced? I think it's desynced again. Okay, that's fun. Messing with my OBS settings has desynced my audio. So anyway, when I go and apply the LUT, basically what happened, that's gonna get really annoying. Basically when I apply the LUT, what it does is it adds a bit more color into my face, makes the bed seem like a bit more vibrant, and just makes everything seem, I guess, a bit more, not just saturated, a bit brighter, and a bit of other things as well. Obviously, you can't do most of this stuff with camera settings, but there's stuff that you can't really do without applying a LUT. So the one that I'm doing is mainly just trying to boost up, or at least the look I'm going for is trying to boost up the saturation and just add a bit more color into what's going on. Because one other thing is I'm actually pretty pale. I know it doesn't come off as much in the video because of the LUT, but doing it like this just makes it look like I'm not dying. And that's an improvement, I would say. But you can go really weird with the LUTs. You can make it so, I don't know, this bed would appear like it's cyan, which, you know, I'm not a fan of, but some people go for that look, and I might, if I don't link stuff down below on the podcast, but, you know, I will find something, because I will forget to link it otherwise. So I'll just tell you what it is. Let's see, OBS LUTs. Can I find them? Gaming careers, this dude. This is, no, do not play an ad.
What?
There, okay. This dude over here is how I found out about applying LUTs and stuff like that to my video. I know he's got a weird face because of this freeze, but that's a weird shot to freeze on. If we go all the way, where is LUTs? Apply LUTs. Something in here. Basically, he goes through all the different LUTs that he has, and he has some links in his that way. His description down there. And you can go get those, and that's where I found the LUTs that I'm using. It's really going to depend on your lighting settings and which camera you're using, because the LUT I picked is very different to the one he picked, even though I'm trying to go for the same look. For whatever reason, the way that my settings are set up and the way that my camera is set up, the LUT that he used looked really, really bad, whereas the one that I picked, it went for the same look that he went for, but if he was to apply that LUT on his system, I think he did in the video, it just didn't make any sense. So if you do go to that video and you do want to use the same LUT that I'm using and see what I mean, it is the, oh no, it is the Barrera LUT. Maybe it is the same one. I don't know. I can't remember. I think he mentioned Barrera and was like, I don't like that one, and then used a different one. But if you want to use the same LUT I'm using, then go to his video and you can download it from there. I cannot promise you're going to get the same look because, as I said, it may be weird just because of the way your camera is actually set up. Anyway, what else do we actually have? So, I'm sure you guys have probably heard about Storyfire by this point. So, Storyfire is... What's the best way to describe Storyfire? It's basically another sort of video platform that was started by a dude called McJuggernuggets. Now, it seems like his sub count has kind of frozen at 214k. Everyone on this platform was just skyrocketing for the first couple of days, and it seems like everyone's sort of forgotten about Storyfire. A lot of creators ended up talking about it for maybe a day or so. So you had people like the Quarter and Go Over, Donut Operator. Who else do we have? So if we just look over here, we have Boogies over here. We have... Who else do we have? Optic? Is he from Optic? I don't know. FaZe? Is Optic even still a thing? He's a cool... Oh, what's FaZe even do now? I think they're a Fortnite clan. Whatever, he's one of those gaming clan guys. We have Keemstar, Some Ordinary Gamers, who has like 1 million subs on YouTube. He might even have more. He's got 20k over on Storyfire. Drama Alert because Keemstar's here, so he's got both his channels here. You've got Ricky Berwick, who is an awesome dude, and there's a bunch of other fairly large creators who came over here, but it seems like nobody's talking about Storyfire. They talked about it for a day, and now no one remembers that Storyfire exists. I don't know what the deal is there. I think part of it might be the fact that to actually become a creator on Storyfire, you either, one, have to be invited over there, which obviously is going to eliminate the vast majority of people, and if you're not invited, you actually have to go through like an application process to even upload a single video, and I don't know how stringent they are with that. As you might have noticed, I've actually got my Tech Over T account logged in over here because I did go and reserve both of my names, just in case, you know, anything does happen with the platform. I want to make it so if I do have any chance to go over there, then I want to have the names that I currently have. And the easiest way to do that is just go reserve the names at the start, even if you don't plan to use it for a couple of years. So I don't know what to say about Storyfire at this point. It seems like it's kind of dead in the water. Like as I said, people talked about it for about a week, and now no one's really saying anything about it. They're kind of just like letting it exist, which doesn't work for building up these platforms. You have to keep constantly pushing it. There's a reason why I'm constantly pushing library in every single one of my videos. If you don't do that, people will very quickly forget about the alternatives. This is why people are pushing things like BitChute as well. If people are not pushing BitChute constantly, it's going to be forgotten about because most people are just using YouTube because that's just the de facto standard for uploading videos at this point. And yeah, people are not talking about this anymore. So there's not really much else I can say about it. It's just like, this platform exists. You have McJuggernuggets and a couple other people with a lot of subscribers, but they're not growing anymore because no one's talking about it. And people can't join the platform because they've got their ridiculous process to join the platform, so no one new can start creating on the platform. And if no one's talking about it, no one's going to go to the platform. If no one's making new content for it because they can't make channels there, or they can't make channel would be the best way, because I've got a profile but I don't have a channel. If they can't make channels there, well, Storyfy is kind of dead in the water. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. If something happens with it, people start talking about it again, maybe it'll be something. But for now, I don't really have much else to say about Storyfy. It's kind of just another platform that exists. It's kind of like Dailymotion, I would say, except without except also has a really difficult process. Dailymotion, like, anyone can create an account. You can go and upload just entire series of anime if you want, and just get your account banned and then upload from a new account. They don't care. It's Dailymotion. They don't have any users, so they just let anyone on the platform. But with Storyfy, because they got a lot of big creators, they got a lot of early press, and then no one's remembering them anymore. Another platform that's fairly similar to this is Parler. Now, I hope that it's not going to produce the bug that I had earlier. I'm gonna hope it doesn't. I'll keep an eye on it. Anyway, Parler ended up being basically, effectively just like Twitter refugees. So obviously you're gonna get the people you expect to be on this platform, like, you have Trump people, you have right-wing senators, you have Avi Yemeni, I think Tommy Robinson's here, Ted Cruz is here, Tucker Carlson, basically Stefan Molyneux, basically the people who would get kicked off of Twitter or have already been kicked off of Twitter at this point. And like with Storyfire, people were talking about it for a couple of days, and then everyone who liked the platform just left the other platforms and went to live on the other platform and went to live on the new platform. So the people on the new platform think the new platform's amazing and it's so great, and then people outside of it have never heard of it. And this is the problem you get with, like, leaving the old platforms and then not trying, or I guess leaving the platforms without trying to bring people over. I don't like YouTube, okay? I've made this fairly clear. The reason why I'm on YouTube and I'm not on Library just permanently, because I prefer Library. It has problems, but I do prefer the platform. The reason why I'm still on YouTube is because you cannot cause these alternative platforms to grow if you try to keep yourself off of the platforms. You have to be on the original platform to siphon people away from it to where you want to take them to, because people are not just going to stumble across Parler. If people want to use Twitter, they're going to use Twitter. And people are not going to find Library. They're not going to stumble across it. They're not going to search for Library. They're not going to search for... If you search for videos, online videos, the first 10 pages will be YouTube, and Dailymotion will probably be in there somewhere as well, maybe Facebook videos or something like that. But the vast majority of it is going to be the major platform. So you cannot get people onto these alternative platforms unless you are actually on the main platform. And this is why I don't understand why there are so many people who want to be exclusive Library creators and think that's going to somehow make the platform grow. The way you're going to get these platforms to grow is you be on both platforms, and then you make exclusive content for the platform that you want to grow. That's why I make that's why I make vlogs and put those exclusively on Library, because if you want more of the, like, personal content, it's going to be on that platform. Also because YouTube will derank my content if I'm uploading too many videos, and Library doesn't have that problem. But if you want these alternative platforms to grow, you have to be on both, and then do something that's going to make people want to use the other platform, whether that be exclusive content, whether that be early uploads, whether that be, I don't know, whatever it is you want to do that's going to bring people over to the alternative platform. You have to be on both, and then find some way to do that. It's the same with, basically, I thought I had a metaphor there. I didn't actually have a metaphor. But I've said it like 5 times now. If you want to make the other platforms grow, You have to be on both. And that's my plan for the future, and that's what I'm going to continue doing. And anyone who says you should just like exclusively start on Library or you should exclusively start on BitChute doesn't know what they're saying. Now, I know that there's going to be people who say, well, we need exclusive people on these platforms. Sure, I can respect that argument if you want to be exclusively on a platform. I wouldn't ever recommend it to anyone though. If you want to do it because you're saying, okay, I think that this platform's going to have a big future and the other platform's going to die so quickly that I'm not going to gain anything from being there, sure. But as with, actually, yeah, that's a good example. As with streaming, you're not going to grow a stream unless you're on multiple platforms. Go, like, I've really changed the way that I guess not changed. I guess I've really hardened on the way that I stand on this ever since I started watching a lot of Devin Nash's videos. If you want to grow a stream, you have to be on multiple platforms. Do not be on Twitch. Twitch is garbage. Twitch has no way to actually grow your stream because it's based on... Twitch actually has the worst algorithm from what I've seen. And by worst algorithm, I mean it is ranked by number of views. So I could write that in 2 minutes. That's the problem with Twitch. And YouTube has its own problem with its weird discovery that, I don't know what YouTube's recommendations actually recommend anymore. And if you're in the politics sphere, it's even worse because you'll typically just get outshined by the major like media corporations. So Fox, CNN, and MSNBC, NBC, or BBC, all of those. If you're doing politics content, you're going to be basically, stifled by the big platforms. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be on them. You should still be on the platform, and you should be on other platforms as well. Because even though you're not going to get that much attention on YouTube, I was in a position where I was really lucky with YouTube and got a shout out from a bigger creator. Most people aren't going to be in that position, but even if you're not in that position, you're still going to get at least some sort of attention on YouTube. And having that tiny bit of attention is better than not having that attention whatsoever. 1 is greater than 0. Go watch Gary Vee. Now I am actually turning into some annoying entrepreneur here. So go watch Gary Vee. Go watch a clip called 1 is greater than 0. Basically the point is here that having that attention from, or I guess having one extra customer, having one extra viewer, having one extra subscriber is better than not having that extra subscriber at all. So even though it may only be one person, may only be 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, 100 people, and your other platforms are significantly bigger, even though that might be the case, it's still better to have those people than to not have those people. That is kind of the point I'm getting at here. So even though your YouTube channel might be tiny and it might not be growing at all, it's better to have those people there than to not have them at all. That's why I'm on Facebook. That's why I'm on Instagram. That's why I'm on Dailymotion. Literally no one watches my content on Dailymotion, so I probably could delete that one. Same with Facebook, but maybe one day they will. The reason why I'm on these platforms is because there are people on these platforms who don't use other platforms who might not otherwise have seen my content. So if I'm on Library, there are people on Library who only watch content there. That's one thing I want to say. Everything I'm saying here is from the creator's perspective. If you just want to watch content on one platform, be my guest. If you don't want to go to YouTube to watch creators, and then to Library to watch creators, and then to Dailymotion to watch creators, and you just want to watch on YouTube, or you just want to watch on Library, be my guest. That's not who I'm talking about today. I'm talking from the creator's perspective. If you want to actually create content, be on those platforms so that you actually have the ability to reach all these audiences who might be just on a single platform. Because, especially with streams, people are not watching on every single platform. Maybe with video platforms, you'll get some crossover, but most people are not watching streams on Twitch and on YouTube and on DLive and I think Facebook Gaming, and I think that's all the major platforms. DLive's not even major, but I think that's all the platforms to consider. I guess you can talk about 3Speak or something like that, but no one cares about the Hive platforms. So, by being on multiple of these platforms, I guess you're putting yourself in a position where you can reach an audience that otherwise wouldn't have been able to ever see your content. And by doing this, you end up building up a bigger audience. You end up building up, I guess, what would be the word? a bigger brand, more people know about you, and maybe those people on that platform you can bring over to another platform. For example, YouTube is less profitable per person than Library. Library per view is more profitable. I get less views on Library and I make less on... Actually, I think I make more on Library right now, but for the size of my channel, I should be making more. It's just because Library doesn't have that many actual users. There's a lot of users who used to be on the platform who are no longer on the platform, so my sub count is larger than it otherwise would be. I think my real sub count would probably be much closer to like 4,000 on Library, but there's a lot of accounts that were created early on to abuse the system, so a lot of the original creators have really big subscriber counts. I have like 12k on there, but it's probably closer to 4 or 5k. So, where was I going with this? Right, you can siphon people from these other platforms like YouTube to the platform that you want them to be on, whether that is because you more ethically prefer the you ethically prefer the platform, or whether the platform is more profitable, or whatever it is the reason you want to siphon these people from these other platforms. If you're not on the platforms, you can't interact with the people, and if you can't interact with the people, you can't siphon them from the platform, and yeah, that was a very long-winded rant. I don't know, I don't know where that came from. And when I don't have anyone to bounce off of, I tend to repeat myself. So my apologies. Yeah, I think it's going to be actually a longer one because I've actually got a lot of topics still left, and we're about half an hour into the show. Usually the solo episode don't go for that long just because I don't really have that much to say. I don't know what's happened recently. Maybe I don't know what's happened recently actually. I feel like I have a lot more to say than I have in previous solo episodes. Usually it's like, oh, here's some stuff that happened just randomly in my life. But this week I've got like a lot of things that happen. Maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention to what's happening, not just in my life, but in the sphere around me. That could be it. I don't know. Speaking of the sphere around me and my life, over on Twitter, this isn't Twitter drama or anything, this is actually something really cool. So, I don't know if you've heard about the situation with Patreon, where basically Patreon has lost their lawsuit against Owen Benjamin. So, I'll find the article. So, Cernovich, actually, can I even say that word on YouTube without getting my video deleted? I don't know. Anyway, so if we go over to this right here. So Patreon loses their lawsuit against Owen Benjamin fans. Basically what's happened is that Patreon, through their sheer wisdom, set up their terms of service to make it so people could not perform class action lawsuits against the company, which from their perspective seemed like a good idea, except for the fact that they're a bunch of morons. So what ended up happening, because people can't take class action against Patreon, they had to basically deal with all of the individual cases that were brought against Patreon by Owen Benjamin's fans, who, if you don't know, was I think he's a comedian or something. I don't know anything about Owen Benjamin. I'm not defending him here. I have literally no idea who the dude is. Anyway, he got removed from Patreon, and his fans decided, okay, well, we're going to file lawsuits against the company for breaking contract, or for forcing our contract with Owen Benjamin to be severed through the third party of the Patreon platform. So Patreon was basically serving as a platform to facilitate this contract between Owen Benjamin and his fans. And Patreon was like, nope, we're going to sever that contract. And under Californian law, this not allowed. Not allowed. It turns out you're not actually allowed to interfere with someone else's contract. Who would have who thought that? I don't know. Who's ever thought that was a thing you couldn't do? So basically what happened is, because of this, his fans decided, okay, well, we're going to file a lawsuit because you decided to do this. And because Patreon has their terms of service set up in a way that they thought was a good idea, but it turns out it wasn't, where people can't do class action, all of the lawsuits had to be handled individually. So that means there was 72 cases. I think there was 100 fans that ended up trying to do the lawsuit, but 72 ended up being the number that is being dealt with here. I don't know Californian law. I'm just saying what I've read. So all of these cases had to be handled individually. And in California, for arbitration, basically the big man in the situation, which in this case is going to be Patreon because they are the big company versus the individual people. So the big guy in the situation has to pay upfront for the arbitration costs, which could be anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 per person. So what Patreon decided to do was like, nope, we're going to change our terms of service. And then they were taken to court because of that. And the court was like, are you actually trying to change your terms of service so in the middle of a lawsuit so people cannot sue you? And they're like, yes, we're doing that. And the judge was like, no, that's not a thing you can do, and they end up losing that case. So it looks like Patreon is going to actually have to pay out the fees to deal with all of these to deal with all of these 72 arbitrations individually. And this is where it gets much worse. So that already is millions of dollars that Patreon could potentially have to pay. But there were other people who were removed from Patreon as well. So if any creators removed before January 1st of this year, and they were patrons of that person before that date, they may potentially be able to file a lawsuit in the same way if they went and actually deleted their account because of this person being removed. If they had kept their account after January 1st, they would have accepted the new terms of service and they would be basically unable to sue. But if they had deleted their account because this person was removed, or they deleted their account before the actual date of the terms of service changed, they would be able to also potentially file a lawsuit. Once again, not a lawyer, so take what I'm saying with a massive grain of salt. With a mountain of salt, sure, whatever. You know what I'm saying. So other creators like, say, for example, Milo or Lauren Southern or Sargon, they were removed from the platform and their fans could potentially also sue Patreon, which could potentially put the company out of business literally overnight. If they had to fork out hundreds of millions of dollars to pay arbitration costs, this would put the company out of business basically in a night. And it looks like that's what's going to happen after Patreon lost their lawsuit. Now, I don't know if they're actually going to have to pay the arbitration costs. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is here. But it is looking bad for the company. If they do have to pay those arbitration costs, then they will be gone. So I posted a tweet basically saying, okay, if you're on Patreon, try to get on some other platform. Get on Subscribestar. Get on... I'll find the tweet. Where is it? You saw it anyway. Here we go. So the Patreon situation... the Patreon situation has become much, much worse. I'll be keeping my profile open, but if you're a creation, that's supposed to say creator, who relies on them, you need to set up an alternative today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. And I entirely stand by that position. If you are relying on Patreon for your income, stop doing that. Get on Subscribestar, as I said here, set up an account on Subscribestar, buy me a coffee, LiberaPay, or if you have a business account, that makes sense. Or if you have a business account, you can have recurring donations set up on that, but do not go down with Patreon. Someone also mentioned on my video that I did about switching to other platforms as well, that you can set up direct deposits to your bank account. However, the problem with doing this is then when people send you money like that, they will know what your bank details are, and I can see why people wouldn't want to do that. So going through a middleman like this can, hide that those bank details from whoever you're sending the money to, which I can entirely understand why you might want to do that. Because if someone did donate like that, I believe you get their full name as well. So doing direct bank deposits probably, isn't the thing that most people want to be doing, especially in the free software sphere. And as you can see, I got a reply from Buy Me a Coffee. So Buy Me a Coffee is... I was going to say it's a developer platform, but I guess it's a bit more than that. So Buy Me a Coffee basically is another recurring donation platform where the idea is that it has like small donations. So you could say, okay, well, I like this dude called, I don't know how to say your name. I'm going to pick the guy who I can't actually say his name. I like this guy called Ryan Love. Okay. So, yes, okay, well, we're not going to click on that one. I don't know what is on that page. Let's go to Robin Wong. Okay, so Robin Wong, he is a photographer and various things like this. So, photography tips, camera reviews, and blog on YouTube. Okay. So you could say, well, I want to buy this guy 1 coffee, and that's basically a support of $3. Or I want to buy them 3 coffees or 5 coffees. So it's all around this idea of like, I guess, if you want to support a creator, look at it like this. Okay, it's only going to cost you how much it would cost you to buy a coffee. That's sort of the idea around this platform. So it kind of makes it seem like the donation is a much smaller amount than it really is, because you wouldn't have any problem just spending $3 to get a coffee in the morning, so why don't you go and support your favorite creator? That's sort of the idea behind this. So I am not on this platform just yet because I didn't think of joining it, but I probably will after the fact that I got a response from Buy Me a Coffee. They were the only guys who actually responded to this tweet, and I actually have a lot of respect for them for that. If you are a creator who wants to find a new recurring donation platform, I would say come check these guys. Did they just go up 2,000 subs overnight? Or 2,000 followers overnight? Jesus. Okay. So yeah, I would say if you're looking for a new recurring donation platform, check these guys out, because they're all going to function basically the same way. But the fact that just some random creator can just get a response from them does lead me to say that they are probably, I guess, a bit more friendly to some of the other platforms. Subscribestar has problems because early on, they ended up getting deplatformed by Stripe. And also PayPal, because that's where all of the like, Sargon and Milo and all of that crowd ended up going after they got removed from Patreon. So, PayPal and Stripe were like, okay, well, we're just not going to do business with this platform, even though we're supposed to be, you know, a platform to transfer money. We're just going to start moralizing about who we're going to support. I don't care if you like the people or not. A payment processor shouldn't have anything to do with politics. I don't care what you have to say about it. They should be an apolitical company who takes no interest in that. All you care about is, I want to take money from this point and take it to this point. That's all these companies should care about. So, the big problem with Subscribestar is that they did end up getting deplatformed by these other payment processors. So you have to use different methods to do so. One of them, I believe you can do direct bank deposits, which obviously has the same problem we saw before. But I guess because you're going through the platform, it's not that big of a deal, because then only the platform knows what your details are, not the creator. Still, some people probably aren't a fan of that. I think the recommended method they suggest is using a platform called, I think it's Chris or something like that, which I haven't set up just yet, just because I have no one subscribing on Subscribestar, but I presume it works in a similar way to Stripe, where basically you connect their API to the website and then, you know, the money gets transferred through digital magic or something. I don't know how it works. So that's the only problem I have with Subscribestar, but Buy Me a Coffee seems to have a fairly clean record. Obviously, if some of these creators ended up coming over to Buy Me a Coffee, we're going to get the same repeat of what happened with Subscribestar, where you're going to have platforms like, you're going to have various journalist class types trying to get Buy Me a Coffee removed from PayPal and removed from Stripe and removed from all of this other stuff. So if you're someone who doesn't get involved with politics, like I typically don't, I mention it on the podcast, but I don't get too involved with it. If you're someone like that, I would say Buy Me a Coffee is probably going to be a safer platform to be on, because I don't know of any of these creators actually being on Buy Me a Coffee. So, yeah. If you're looking for a new platform that isn't Patreon, this one might be a good one to go to. I don't know how well their platform works. As I said, I am not actually using it just yet, but I do know that their team seems like they're at least willing to talk to people, which, hey, is always nice to see. This is a good iced coffee. It's really bad for me, but I don't drink that much coffee, which might explain why I'm Yeah. Explain why I'm a bit more jittery than normal. This is why I typically don't drink coffee. I've got actually 2 of them here. This one's empty. It's from the other day. The problem is that if I go to the shops, I typically buy them, and that's not a good thing because they're really bad for you. They are, let's see how many carbs are in this. Average quantity per 750 mils. So that's the entire bottle. That is 80 grams of carbs. Which is probably double that you should. Yeah, I think that. No, sorry, that's 4 times what you'd need to have to be outside the range of keto. Wouldn't recommend keto. I've done it before. Obviously, there are a lot of people who have success. I'm not going to say don't do it. I would just say it's a lot of work. And if you're not going to commit to it properly, it's going to be very bad. If you're going to commit hardcore to it, it's probably good for you. Same, I can't really say much about the carnivore diet, but I know that people who are, I guess, hardcore advocates of it seem to get some sort of positive benefit from it. So if you're going to go really hardcore on the diet, maybe it'll work. But you can't do one of those diets and then be half-hearted with it. Obviously, like most other sort of diets like that, you can kind of be half-hearted about them and still get, a lot of health benefits from it. For example, if you are a really half-hearted vegan and you occasionally, 99% of your meals are plant-based and whatever other things vegans eat, I don't know, dirt or something. If most of your meals are plant-based and then once a month you have a steak, you're still going to get most of the benefits of eating a cleaner diet than having McDonald's and stuff every other week. It's still going to be an improvement over what you probably had. Whereas if you're not doing keto properly, you basically just feel like shit all the time. Which is how I felt, because I was pretty bad at it. I was fine for the first week, and then it was a bad idea trying to do that diet when I was having to do my weird time schedule. Really weird sleeping schedule that I had at the time, because I was doing night film management, so I was at work until midnight, but I also once a week, sometimes twice a week, did 5 a.m. starts. So my body just didn't have any idea what to do with my sleep schedule, and that coupled with changing my diet as well ended up causing it to be a massive pain. Now, this isn't to say don't do keto, as I said. If you want to do it, go ahead. But if you're going to do it, I would say make sure that you're very committed to it. Because otherwise, you will feel like shit. And it won't be fun for you. I actually felt so bad for the first, first 2 weeks of doing it. Keto flu hit me real hard. And, during that, I was also obviously working 5 in the morning. So, yeah, it didn't go down well. I had to stop working a couple of times to almost throw up a few times. And that... my experience with it is not, I guess... not descriptive of most people's. Most people seem to do pretty well. Most people also commit to it more than I do. For me, I just try to avoid drinking these, and I try to eat cleaner than I used to. Back when I was a kid, I would eat chicken nuggets and fish fingers every night. If you don't know what fish fingers are, I'm going to educate you. Let's go bird's eye fish fingers. Yeah, here we go. So this right here is the fish fingers I had as a kid. These are bird's eye, 40 fish fingers. I'd go through this in 4 days. I'd have 10 of them. Basically, it's a stick of hockey. Hockey? I don't know how to say it. It's a stick of a fish, basically. So that's what I would eat all the time as a kid. And not the worst thing you could be eating, but probably also much better things out there as well. So that plus fish fingers. No, that plus that plus chicken nuggets. Sorry, that's what I meant. So you can kind of only go up from there. So now most of my meals are... I'm actually really lazy with eating. Pretty much what I have is rice and some sort of meat every night. And that's basically what I do. Rice and some sort of meat every single night. I'm super lazy with what I eat. It's much easier. Here's the thing. I'm not that much of a foodie. So I don't really care what I eat too much as long as I'm eating something that tastes alright. And once you cook the same meal 100 times, you kind of get much better at cooking it. I know it's easy to cook rice. I know people who are somehow bad at it. Most people can cook rice perfectly fine though. But once you've cooked it like 100, 200, 300 times, it gets much easier to cook it and you can kind of do it without even thinking. But I don't really like putting my mental effort into thinking about what I'm going to eat. It's kind of like the Steve Jobs thing, except I'm not the CEO of a massive company. Where basically, if you don't know the reason why Steve Jobs wore a turtleneck every day, basically the reason he did that is because he didn't want to think about what he was wearing. It's just like, okay, I have more important things to worry about than the clothes that I'm wearing, so I'm going to just wear the same clothes every single day. Sort of like that. I don't want to worry about the food that I'm eating every day. I'm just going to eat the same thing every single day. Try to make sure that I'm getting the nutrients that I need, so also supplement as well. Just in case I'm not getting what I need. And then not worry about it. And then just put my mental effort into things that actually matter. Basically, the only time that I actually eat something different is one, when I go to a party, because obviously you're going to eat whatever party food's there, usually a pizza or something. And also when I go visit my parents, because, you know, they'll just cook something. I don't actually... I really should visit my parents more often. They're only like an hour and a half away. Which probably sounds like a long distance. It's about 150 kilometers away, which also probably makes it sound worse. 150 kilometers in Australia isn't actually that far, because once you get outside of the suburbs, it's mainly open road, because people basically don't live outside of if you look at a map of the population of Australia, most of the population is around the coast, and there's little bits, you know, scattered around the center of the country, pretty much just because most of the country doesn't have water in it. I'll see if I can find it. Population map of Australia, 2020. Sure, that'll work. So if I just bring this open, here we go. Is that? Yeah. Okay, that's actually a really good map. Cool. So as you can see here, is that going to zoom in? That's zoomed in too far. Okay. So this is probably bad for the audio people, but basically along the west coast, there's a little bit of population around the top part of the west coast and also the bottom part. So that's in Western Australia. Basically, as you're like coming down the side of it, pretty much close to the west coast, there's population density. And then if you go down to the bottom part of Western Australia, that's where you end up hitting, what the fuck's the capital of Western... Darwin? Yeah. I forgot what the capital of Western Australia was. Wait, fuck. I should know this. Capital of Western Australia. Why am I blanking on this? What's the fucking capital of Western Australia? Perth. No, Darwin's in fucking Northern Territory. What am I saying? Anyway, so in Perth, that's obviously where the majority of the density is. Then if you go up to Northern Territory, up here you have Darwin, and basically that's where the population is there. But most of the population in Australia lives on the east coast, and I'm, you know, around this area here. But as you can see, we have Brisbane down here. We have... What? I'm fucking blanking. Whatever. We have the other capitals. Ignore the fact that I don't know where the places in my country are. Right, so we have... of course, that'll be Sydney and that'll be Melbourne. Yeah, that's right. So most of the density in Australia is on the coastlines. What? Where the hell am I where did I... Wait, what point was I even getting at here? I have literally no idea. I don't know why am I talking about the population density in Australia? Where did this come from? I don't remember. This... What was I trying to say there? Something that there was a point that I was making here. Oh, right. Visiting my parents, of course, because most of the country is empty. Right, of course. That's where I was getting at. Right. So as I was saying, most of the population density is around the East Coast, and as you can see, most of the country is fairly empty. There's like little bits of nothing around here. So we have like Alice Springs up here, and I think that would probably be like Murray Bridge or something. I don't know. Where's Murray Bridge? Somewhere around this area. Murray Bridge is somewhere in this area. Anyway, outside of the like population density, unlike some other countries, like in the US, you would have like density split around all of this, but most of the country is just nothing. So even if I say something is like 500 kilometers away, that's mainly, once you get out of these density centers, so it probably takes like half an hour to get outside of this big density here, and then the rest of it is just basically the speed limit the entire way, because there's just nothing else to stop you. Sadly, the speed limit in Australia is fairly low. On open roads, in my state, it's 110 kilometers an hour. I don't know what that is in miles, work it out for yourself. So, when you get out onto these open roads, even though there's nothing there, you're basically at best, doing 100 kilometers in an hour. Which is stupid. I would like open roads to be, open speed limit, which I know some people can probably disagree with, and my car would probably disagree with that, but it would still make it a bit quicker to get out to these places that are a bit further away. So, yeah, I said before that I should go visit my parents more often. Obviously, an hour and a half drive is going to be a bit of a distance, because it's kind of a very boring hour and a half, so even though it's an hour and a half, it still feels like it takes a long time, because there's not much out there. So I usually listen to like Joe Rogan and stuff when I go out there, just because it makes it, much easier to deal with. Obviously, unless I'm going somewhere, or I'm going there with someone, but usually my sister doesn't like to be in the same car as me, because she doesn't like my driving, which I don't understand, because I feel like I'm a perfectly fine driver. I think she's just a bit of a sook about it. So yeah, I should go visit my parents more often. I'll probably do that next year, just when, like, once I've finished uni. Pretty much the only reason that I guess I don't have time to do it now is because I have my assignments, and I usually go up for the weekend. And the weekend is also where I go, or when I go and prepare my next week of content. And if I go visit my parents, then I can't exactly prepare the content because I'm with my parents, and I want to be spending time with them. But if I am not doing uni work, then I can prepare it a bit more during the week, I guess. Obviously, it's still going to be a problem with my main job, because that's still going to take up time as well. I would honestly love to not be doing that. It would be so much fun. Like, I'm getting to the point where it's getting easier and easier, and as my like Patreon and stuff grow, it's getting very tempting. I'm still my Patreon's still fairly low. It's still ridiculously higher than I had expected it to be. Like, if we look at it, 15 patrons, $121 a month, which is crazy. I don't know where you guys came from. I sincerely appreciate it. One of the guys who recently joined at a $4 tier, he was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like raise it up to $32. It's like, all right then. I don't know how long he's gonna keep it. I don't know. I never understand why someone would want to pay $32 a month for free content that they can, just watch on my channel anyway. I very much appreciate it, but I don't understand, why anyone actually does that. If someone who actually does do it, I don't know, I think, yeah, Joachim, you watch the podcast. If you get to this point, tell me why you actually donate $32 a month. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't understand. Like, that's double what a Netflix subscription is. I don't think that the content I put out is worth that much. Obviously, I do like the content mainly that I put out. I have a lot of criticisms of it, but that's mainly just because I have to watch it for like an hour and a half when I edit it, and like an hour when I'm recording it, and I'm sick of hearing my voice by the end of it. So for me, I find it to be really annoying, and there are things that I noticed I can work on, like the audio quality, which probably going to be improved by a better mic. Obviously, the video quality, I'm using a Logitech webcam, but that can be massively improved by getting, either a mirrorless or a DSLR. I'll probably go mirrorless just because they're cheaper. And honestly, anything will be a bit of an upgrade from what I have now. So it's not like I need some crazy camera to. I don't get why some channels go and get like red cameras, like $10,000 cameras, just to make YouTube videos. Sure, there's going to be an upgrade there, but the return on investment for that camera isn't really going to be worth it. At least that's what I think. But for my style of content, getting some sort of decent mirrorless camera or an entry-level DSLR is probably going to be as good as I really need to go. And that's probably going to be the point that I stop at with my video quality. Maybe one day I'll get something better, but I think doing the audio is probably going to be more important. So, yeah, because the video you can always kind of ignore, but the audio quality, you kind of need the audio quality there to make it so it's enticing to keep watching. There's like this, I don't know if you notice it, but you go watch someone who actually has, like, go watch DT's content, and there's I guess the lows ended up sounding, what's the, bit more, not punchy, guess a bit more penetrating. So the low part of the voice is typically what you're going to get from like a radio sound. And that's sort of the sound that most people seem to go for on YouTube. And I think it kind of has that best sound there. This is why I don't have good audio stuff, because I should probably work on my speaking first. But having that nice radio sound there will end up improving the audio quality. And I think a really good example of it is go watch, there's a guy called Michael Hebo on Library, and he recently got a new microphone, and then compare it to the sound that you get from me. And you'll hear there is a very noticeable difference. Even if you're not like a big audio guy, you'll notice if you pay attention to it, the low end of his voice ends up sounding, I guess, there's something to it that just makes it sound much more enticing. And obviously that's part of the way that he speaks, but it's also the microphone is also contributing to that. And there's only so much you can really do with something like a Blue Yeti. Obviously, I can improve the way that I speak, and I can slow down the way that I speak, and I can, try to put more emphasis on certain words, but still, there is something lost when you're using a cheaper mic like a Blue Yeti that you can't really replicate it in software. You can try to improve the Yeti with, things like EQ and things like that, but there's only so much, especially when it comes to software EQ. When I go proper audio, I'm not going to go as crazy as DT has gone, but I do want to actually get like hardware EQ, and I'll probably go the full setup, but just a cheaper way to do it, because he's got like a 16 mic setup, which is dumb. There's no reason why he needs 16 mics. He doesn't do any videos except for by himself. So at best, you could have like 2 separate microphones. So I do eventually want to do that, and it will improve the audio quality. But the big thing about that is, especially when you're investing early on, I want the content to be there before I invest in the hardware. So I can make better videos with the hardware that I have. I can improve my editing, and I do have a little thing that I can do, and it's kind of stealing it from Chris Titus. If you notice at the start of his videos, he fades in from black, and I feel like that just adds a little bit of a nicer transition into the start of the video. And there's other things I can do, like working on my presenting style and work on the way that I guess, prepare my videos to structure them in a better way. For example, one thing people have pointed out recently is in a lot of my software showcase videos, I kind of jump into the key binding and stuff like that before I show what the application can do, which I think is partially what's affecting my watch time. So if I do a showcase of what the application can do and then jump into configuring it and jump into the key binding, things like that, or I guess show a use case for it and then jump into that other stuff, people will stick around a bit longer. For example, I've got, let's actually see what I've got in my list coming up soon. So I'm doing a video on Vim Easy Motion, for example. So I can show you at the start of the video, okay, this is what you can do with Vim Easy Motion. This is how you jump around really quickly. This is like why you'd want to use it. And then after you've seen, okay, this is really cool, then I can explain how I was actually doing that stuff, rather than being, okay, I'm going to explain how I do the stuff while I'm showing you what it's doing, show you first what it's doing, then repeat some of that stuff while I'm showing you how it works. I think that, if that makes sense. So it will end up with a bit more repeated stuff. So if I'm going to show like how to jump around between lines and jump around between words, jump around between splits with easy motion, I will end up showing that at the start and then showing that in the individual sections. So it will end up with some repeated content. But if you're enticed by what the application can do at the start, having that little bit of repeated content isn't going to be the worst thing to actually have there. At least that's what this viewer thinks, and I'm kind of in agreement. If it doesn't work out, then I can always go back, or maybe in between, to something like I was doing before and then like I was doing afterwards, and maybe hit a good middle point. But I think that going to that other direction is probably going to be an improvement. Because yeah, I do think there are definitely places I can work on with my content. It's definitely improved since what I used to do. For example, I wouldn't be able to do an hour and 10-minute podcast back even like a couple of weeks ago. I think there's still these massive level improvements that have been happening as I've been going, where it might not be noticeable day by day. For example, if I upload a video tomorrow and then I make something the next day, the difference between those two videos might not be noticeable to a viewer, or it even might not be noticeable to me. But if I compare what I did today with what I did a month ago, even then, there is a big difference. At least I notice it. You might not notice it, just because if you don't watch every single video I put out, you probably won't pick up on the same things that I put out. And even if you do watch every single video I put out, you get a 15-minute cut of what I do. What I end up getting is I get, recording every single take, sometimes redoing takes, sometimes doing them a third, fourth, fifth time, depending on the sort of, thing I'm going for. Sometimes I want to be very, very specific with what I'm saying. Sometimes I kind of let it flow in different ways. Sort of depends on the video. The vloggy stuff usually flows. The very technical stuff, I'm usually like, okay, I want to say this, and I want to say it in this specific way. So those ones end up with more retakes, whereas the vlogs, sometimes the vlogs are just one take for the entire video. Sometimes maybe there's 2 or 3. If I'm recording outside, I tend to do it in a single take. If I'm recording inside, I will recut stuff. And the reason for that is just because cutting it outside ends up making the background end up looking kind of weird. Whereas here, it's kind of just my hands moving, whereas the background is going to be static the entire time. So it's me moving rather than the background moving. I think the background moving is a little bit more annoying, so I try not to cut those videos at least as much. Sometimes I have to do it, otherwise I re-record a 10-minute video. Depends on what I'm doing and whether I think that doing that is a good idea. But what I was getting at there, once again, I don't remember. Recording content. Right. The take you get is about a 15-minute take. So me, I'm recording for maybe an hour to an hour and a half, and then I have my editing. So when I'm editing, I re-listen to what I'm saying multiple times. Usually it takes me at least double the length of the video to edit it. Depends on how many takes I do. Obviously, if I do a single take for the entire video, maybe not a single take. Maybe there's a single take with multiple breaks in it. Like I make a mistake, but I don't stop the recording. In those cases, it's still easier to edit than when I have, say, 10 clips of the same length. For whatever reason, it works out easier to edit when it's one big clip rather than a bunch of little clips. I don't know what the deal is there. Maybe with the little clips, I'm making more mistakes. I've not really paid too much attention to it. But what I was getting at there was I end up spending much more time than even the most devout viewers end up seeing the content, unless obviously you rewatch my videos like 20 times. If you do that, thank you. I appreciate it. But most people aren't weird like that. At least I hope not. Don't find my house. Yeah. So even though... Right. The point I was getting at was because I spend much more time looking at my content, I will notice these little changes much quicker than people who are watching the content. If you go watch my old videos and then you watch what I do now, anyone can notice. If you watch something from like 6 months ago, it's very noticeable because, among other things, my camera was lower. So I think back then I had my webcam around this point, which ended up... Yeah, there we go. So it's sort of like a look up my nose sort of thing, which I didn't think was bad at the time. And then I compare it to what I have now, where the camera is almost at eye level. I'd say it's a tad above eye level. I'm thinking of maybe if I go too high, then you end up getting the problem where you're like looking down on me, and I'm not a fan of that. I think having it at eye level ends up creating this nice effect where it's sort of like we're having a conversation, where we're like looking directly at each other, rather than... Obviously, sometimes I will still look down, and I do that in real life anyway. But having the camera at eye level sort of produces this effect where I'm talking to the viewer, rather than if you're above me, then I'm like talking up to you, which is weird because it's sort of like I'm talking up to a superior. Or it's even weirder when the camera's below, because then it's like I'm talking down to people, which with the more analytical videos ends up producing this very weird idea, this weird, I guess, effect where it's sort of like I'm the boss. I'm trying to explain something to people who are below me, and I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. I like this. I like this effect where it's sort of like I'm having a conversation with the viewers, even though I'm talking at the viewers. With the more tutorial content, I think having it so it's sort of like we're at the same level, even though it's not the same level of authoritative that you'd get by having the camera below you. It's, I guess, a bit more of a friendly look at it, and that's sort of the approach that I'm going. I'm not trying to be the Linux god. I'm not trying to be anyone who's trying to sell you on anything. I'm just trying to explain to my viewers what I'm thinking, and explain to the people who want to learn from me what I want to teach them. So having them be, I guess, view me as if they're at the same level as me, it's complex video philosophy, psychology. Yeah. There's different ways you can record. I know DT has it from above, but he's also got a weird setup where he's got a very wide angle shot where you see a lot of his background. So he's got a bit of a... Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how you would describe what DT does. The way DT frames his shots are a little bit weird. So if you haven't seen one of DT's videos, DT is DistroTube, if you don't know who I'm talking about. I'll show you what I mean. Oh god, no. Okay, that's gonna be... There's no face cam in that one at all. Has he stopped doing face cams? Yeah, okay, DT's got a weird one. Here we go. He's got a camera off to the side, but he looks at his monitor, which is in a different spot. So this is sort of like, even though the camera is above rather than being at eye level, it's sort of like your... What's the way? How do you? It's sort of like having a presenter sort of position. So he has got a camera that's a bit closer to being at his face. So this one right here, it's at a bit of a different angle. Is it a different camera? Yeah, it is. Wait, it might actually be the same camera. I might be an idiot. No, it's the same camera, but he's also looking towards the chat in his live streams, which, as you can see, he's not looking directly at the camera. He's looking towards the chat. And I think it works for the sort of content that he does. Plus, because he has such a wide angle shot, you can see a lot of his background. So as I was saying before about the presenter thing, even though it is above, because you can see all of this, I guess, background behind him, it gives him this air of, I guess, what would be the way to describe it? This air of, what's the word? Authority? Yeah. Yeah, if you would have to look at the way that a lot of the early video or early online talk shows were handled. So when you do a video podcast, a lot of people like to frame their shots like this because it's sort of like how you would imagine a radio show to be recorded. They're similar. Yeah, they are very similar in that respect. So, for example, if we go look at the old episodes of Luke and Lewis, they were being shot like this. So this is the new stuff. Actually, I think they shoot the... Let's find something when they're in the actual... Yeah, here we go. So here are here are them in the warehouse, I believe this was. Do they have individual shots here? No, they don't. Okay. Luke and Lewis, radio. We'll find it. Here we go. Here's what I mean. So you've got this sort of like presenter style where you have a really wide angle shot and you can see a lot of stuff that's going on in the background and the camera is above them. But I hope what I'm saying probably makes literally no sense right now. Yeah. I hope you kind of, and at least from the examples that I'm showing, as sort of getting something from what I'm saying. So it's sort of showing, by having the camera above you but not too far above, it's sort of giving you this presenter sort of look. Whereas if the camera is really above, it's sort of like they're looking down. Really below, it's sort of like you're looking down on them. Whereas if it's a little bit above with a wide angle, it gives them this, I guess, air of being a presenter saying something really important. And that's sort of the point that I was getting at there. I would like to actually frame my shots like this. The problem is that the reason why I frame exactly like I do, I could go lower obviously, but the reason why I frame at this height and not too much higher and not too wider, basically is because there's stuff just outside of frame right now that would kind of ruin the shot. Like if I had the edge of my, the back end edge of my bed being shown, it would kind of look a bit weird. I like having the bed slightly cut off. And if you could see too much more of this side, you would see like the edge of the bed. Obviously you can see my pillows and I prefer that not to be there. But so only so much you can do. I'm not gonna, I wish I had the room to set up something that like Scott C Business has. Scott Cunningham. I'll show you what he does. Scott. Science Cunningham playing Black. Science Cunningham playing Black Magic. Okay. Scott Cunningham. I'm gonna find his content. No, it's gonna be a very different Scott. Here we go. Here's the Scott I'm talking about. So he frames his shot in a really weird way. So give that a second to load. He's got this like whole setup thing. His camera framing is about the same way that I have, but he's also got this really interesting background. I've got this white background just because I don't have any room. I would honestly love to do what he's done. Not with the Canadian flag. There would be a big Australian flag there and less crypto stuff around. But I think he could probably get away with, obviously unless it looks weird if you were to frame it differently like the way DT does, but he could probably get away with framing it in the same way that DT does and giving himself this presenter aesthetic. And part of the presenter aesthetic also comes from having your mic in the shot like this. I don't really have a way that I could nicely put this in the frame, plus it's a Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti doesn't really have that, I guess professional feel to it. Whereas if you have something like Scott has here, this looks like something where if you were to see a picture of a radio station, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's probably from a radio station. The same thing happens obviously with DT. Did we see his mic earlier? I'll show you that again. That's here you go. You can see DT's mic. I went back too far. You can see DT's mic here, and it's got this like, that also adds to the presenter air that he has to him. You have the camera above him, you have all of this like audio gear behind him, the C Matrix back here, Free as in Freedom by Richard Stallman, and also you have the mic in here. So all of this put together gives him this air of being a authoritative source on the information while not having the camera too far above to look like you're looking down on him, and not having it too far below to look like he's looking down on you. Having the camera looking down on you can work for some sort of content. If it's, for example, content directed towards children, that can kind of work in some instances, because then you have like the parent looking down on the children, and you know there's that sort of there's that sort of air to it. But typically with content directed towards children, it's going to be shot at the level of the child, because it then makes them look like, I guess, whoever's the eyes they're looking from are at the same level of their as their eyes, and kind of puts them into the shoes of being in the video. Whereas with what DT does, you kind of want it to be this idea where DT is telling you something important, and it looks like he knows exactly what he's talking about. So I don't think he's put this much thought into how he's actually framing his shot, but he might have. But from what I see, I guess if it's not done on purpose, it was done in a subconscious way to get this look where he is this authoritative voice on what he's trying to say, whether that be on distro reviews, whether that be on random Linux things. Even if it's not intentional, going for this presenter look does work, but it's a presenter look that doesn't look fake. For example, if you were to compare this with, I won't show anything from Fox News or from CNN or anything like that, because they might be angry with that, but you've seen the way that like news shows are actually recorded. So I'll bring up something actually. So let's just news report or something. I don't know. News reporter. Where's a good one? Here you go. So you got something like this, where it's kind of like it's sort of like framed the way that I frame my videos, but there's something about it that just feels inauthentic. Whereas if you just have a dude in front of a webcam like this, there's a bit of a different feel to it. Same with this one here. As you can see, there's just something inauthentic. What's happening here is they're framing their shot in a way to make it seem like they're your friends. They're talking, you know, at the same level as you. They're trying to talk to you, trying to tell you something important. But it feels inauthentic. Whereas if you compare that to, you know, just random video podcasts, let's see if we can find something. So, actually, I'll just show you a bit more of this. We get more of these shots. So the way they're framing them here, you can see he's at your eye level. So it's trying to appeal to like, hey, I'm your friend. I'm trying to tell you something important. But there's something about the way that they frame it like this that just feels inauthentic. And I think if you think about it long enough, you'll probably see what I'm trying to get at here. But if we go and find something else, let's see if we can find, let's see, radio studio recording. Podcast. We'll look up podcast recording. Am I gonna? Yeah, here you go. This dude gets it. This is sort of like the background doesn't look anywhere near as nice as DT's does, but he's got this look where he's got the camera slightly above him. He's got all this fancy stuff going on in the background, and it kind of looks like he's this, you know, air of authority about what he's saying, and he's trying to like present to you rather than trying to pretend to be your friend like happens with the news reports. This guy is like, okay, well, I'm going to be telling you about the fun stuff that's happening today. That it's got that like, I guess, also the part of it is, or another part of it is, it's got this like, I guess, pirate radio feel to it, where it's like, hey guys, I'm going to tell you about the fancy cool stuff that's happening now on whatever this show is supposed to be called. I think what I'm saying makes any sense. It probably doesn't make any sense to anyone else, but this is because I'm kind of rambling off the top of my head. I didn't plan any of this talk. This is just me saying literally nonsense. But I think if you can work out, if you can understand what I'm trying to say, then you can probably start to see what I'm getting at. Here you go. Here's another one. These guys get it as well. So you have the camera slightly above, and it's got this presenter filter. Now, obviously, there's more people here. If we go to, say, this one here, this guy's also got a pretty good idea to it. So you got all this interesting stuff going on in the background, and obviously, there's two people here, so it's got a bit of a different feel to it as well. But it's got this, like, hey, I'm trying to, like, present to you about something. Or in this case, because there's two people, hey, I'm the presenter, but I'm going to be interviewing this guy over here. Which in this case is that Barack Obama? Might be. Yeah. So that was the longest-winded way to say basically the way that DT is framing his regular videos is sort of like he's always recording a podcast and he's, you know, always trying to present something to you. Whereas the way that I frame it, partially because I have to, is talking to you as if I'm your friend. And there's no harm in doing it the way DT does. It works really well for his content, especially because of the nice microphone he has. That sort of style works really nice if you have a cool looking microphone. It doesn't have to be a good microphone. There are $50 microphones that look like they belong in a radio station, but having something that has that look, it adds that feel to it. And having an interesting looking background with nonsense in it, could be, you know, computer monitors. Actually, another guy who does it fairly well, I guess he does it in a bit of a different way, is Wendell from Level 1 Techs. But he also has a bit of a different look that is similar to the way that... We'll go with Level 1 Linux. That should work a bit better. He also has a bit of a different look that goes more towards the same sort of style that Chris Titus does, where he's standing up. And standing up is a whole nother thing that you could talk about. We'll mute that. Okay, if we go to YouTube, not look at it in DuckDuckGo. Okay, let's see if we can find his face. Oh, don't cancel that. Where's your face? Ah, there's your face. This, actually no, he's standing up, but it still has the same sort of look that DT does, where you have this nice background, and you've got this off-angle shot where it's not directly on your face. So it's sort of like he's presenting to you what he's trying to say, rather than... Here you go, here's another shot. He'll sometimes look at the camera, but he's trying to say something, I guess... He's trying to present what he's saying to you, rather than, hey, this is me as your buddy talking to you, basically. Actually, you're not even seeing it. He... Probably should have shown that to you. So this is, as you can see, same sort of framing that DT does. He doesn't have a microphone in the shot, which is probably not an artistic choice, probably just because he's wearing a lav? I don't think he's wearing... He's probably got a shotgun microphone just off. Unless there's something in the darkness. I don't know. He's probably got a shotgun microphone just off frame here. So this is sort of the same sort of, you know, podcast, pirate radio, presenter feel that DT and all of the other podcasts are doing. That conversation came out of nowhere, but I think somewhere in there that started maybe making sense. So, yeah, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I don't even know if anyone would have sat through that, because I was saying literally nothing throughout that entire time. Maybe there was something interesting or of note being said in there. Maybe I said something, but I don't really know. So if anyone has stuck around, has anyone heard about the Joe Rogan video game thing that happened? So this was the dumbest controversy I've ever seen. I'll see if I can find it. Joe Rogan video game. Okay, so Joe Rogan's full comments on kids playing video games. Was Joe Rogan right about video games? Sounds like a boomer. PewDiePie reacts to Joe Rogan's comments on video games. PewDiePie responds to Joe Rogan's comments on video games. And a bunch of other people who... Here we go. Is Joe Rogan right about young men and video games? Joe Rogan schooled by Ninja after saying video games was a waste of time. This was the dumbest controversy that I have ever seen regarding Joe Rogan. Basically what he said was that there is a lot of people who play video games who are basically just wasting their life. Whereas what you could be doing is you could be building up some productive skill, and the example that he gave was with jiu-jitsu. Probably not the best example. He probably could have went with, like woodworking or something that you could convert very easily into a job, or programming or something like that where you can very easily convert that into a job. But the example he gave was jiu-jitsu, which is a good example. It might have been taekwondo. No, I think it was jiu-jitsu. But that's still a very productive skill. Of training a martial art has more benefits outside of just being the skill itself. You have discipline, and you have the community aspect, and a bunch of other things like that that do actually make it a bit more of a productive skill. And he also described playing video games as being... Oh, my nose is itchy. Playing video games as being an alcoholic. And for whatever reason, people saw this and then took it as some sort of massive attack on video games and video games as a community. And I don't understand how this ended up happening. Because basically what he was describing was his experience playing games when he was younger. Not even younger, a couple of years ago. If you go watch his older podcasts, he talks about how he would play Quake all of the time. I don't know how he found time for it, but he would play Quake a lot of the time. Yeah, Quake. I thought it might... Was it Unreal Tournament? No, I think it was Quake, not Unreal Tournament. Doesn't matter. It was a shooter that was really popular in the past, and he was getting really into it. And he described it as being a big waste of time, and saying that there was a lot of young men who also had the same sort of problem, where they would play video games not to escape from, to escape from the things they actually had to do in their life when they should be doing more productive things. He wasn't saying that it was a bad thing if you come home from a long day at work and then I'm going to play some, I'm going to play some RuneScape, I'm going to play some Call of Duty, I'm going to play some Fortnite, whatever the kids are playing now. He wasn't saying that it was necessarily a bad thing to, just play some games in your off time. What he was saying was playing games to avoid your productive, things that you should productively be doing was not going to be good for you in the long run. And if the argument that some people do make, especially a lot of younger people now, that they are this is actually going to be a serious problem in the next 10, 15 years. There's a lot of kids now who are growing up and seeing that there's people like Ninja out there, and people like Shroud, and people like, other big gamers, Ludwig, for example, seeing these people and saying, hey, look, I can play video games and I can, make a career from this. And the amount of people who do this is very, very small. And the guests he had on the time ended up saying, it's 1 in a million people who end up, making this happen. And Joe Rogan did end up correcting him on this, saying it is much more common than that, but it is still a very rare thing to get into. Maybe 1%, 0.1% of the people who play these games will end up making something productive out of it. And most of the people who are playing them are just doing it because they want to, kill some time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you are playing games to kill some time after you've done the things that you have to do in your life to be productive, that's one thing. But if you're playing, say, 8, 10, 12 hours a day just because either you're trying to avoid what you have to do, or because you think you're going to become a professional at this, that's where it can become a bit of a problem. And Joe was saying basically that he was in this position not where he thought that he was going to become a pro at gaming. He already had his other business ventures, but he was playing these games and avoiding the things that he should be doing. And he was saying that this was, like being an alcoholic, like having some other sort of addiction where it's ruining your life. And he wasn't saying that playing games was a bad thing. If you want to play games, that's cool. But make sure that you're also getting what you need to get done in your life, actually done in your life. And, not turning this into a very negative habit. And I think probably the only person I've seen actually have a good take on this and not just get like just whining about, oh, Joe Rogan said video game bad. Like, basically the only people who, or the only person who I saw actually have a good take on this was Devin Nash. Now, I've talked about Devin Nash a few times in this episode, but if you're not watching Devin Nash, you should be watching Devin Nash. So I will find the clip that I'm specifically talking about. Basically, yes, this one here. So Gamers versus Joe Rogan. And his thumbnails are actually amazing. Like, the one he did with, the podcast he did with Ludwig, which is 4 hours long. I need to watch that at some point. But it is also 4 hours long. That's a great thumbnail. Anyway, this is the video that I was specifically talking about. And it's not it was big nothing burger, basically. Pretty much. It was just Joe Rogan talking about his experience playing games and saying that it was a negative experience from him and that a lot of people end up going down the same path. And then when someone like Joe does actually be critical of that path that people are going down, they will be very, very defensive about it. Now, he didn't bring that point up himself, but I'm saying that. When people see that their hobby that has already been attacked a lot gets, I guess, sort of attacked by someone else, they instantly go on the defensive about it. Which, I guess, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think that it was very misguided in this place. Basically, Joe wasn't saying anything. He wasn't saying that games were bad. If you want to play games. But also make sure that you're not wasting your life away playing games in the hopes that you're going to make it somewhere. But one thing he did bring up is that if you are determined to be a professional gamer, be a streamer, whatever it is, if you're determined to do that and you're going to put in the reps, you're going to put in the hours, you can do that. If you think you can do it, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. For example, in the clip, Joe mentioned that people told him that, or I think he said his parents told him that being a comedian, or maybe it was his friends or something, I don't remember, that being a comedian is a very difficult thing to do, and there's basically no one who's a comedian. And his point was, well, if basically no one's a comedian, that means that someone is, and I'm going to be one of those someones. And if you feel the same way about whether that be game streaming, whether that be about professional game, whether that be about, I don't know, YouTube content creation, whatever it is, if you think that you want to put in the reps and you want to be successful at that and you don't care what anyone else has to say about it, do it. It's your life. Do whatever you want. But convincing people that everyone is going to be able to go down this path it's not going to be good in the long run. And as I was saying earlier, we're going to start seeing some really weird things happen in the next 10 to 15 years. Because when I was a kid, we were only really starting to see the beginnings of people being professional online content creators. When I was a kid, when YouTube first started, I think I found YouTube maybe a year after it started. Maybe the same year it started, I don't remember. 2006, 2007, whenever, I think that might have been a year after YouTube started. Back then, no one made money on the platform. I think Machinima existed maybe the year after that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe Machinima was around at the time. But this was very early on, and the people who made money online was even smaller than it is now, because you had to go through an MCM, and just, yeah, no one talked about MCMs now because they're dumb. But as time has gone on, the number of people who have been able to succeed online has grown, and the success that these people have had has been much bigger. So people are growing up seeing these people and saying, okay, I want to be that. But they're not putting that level of dedication in there that I guess you can, or you have to put in to actually make it to that point. Because if you do want to make it to that point, it's not just like, oh, you're going to half-heartedly make content, you're going to half-heartedly stream games, whatever it is you're doing. You have to put in hours and hours of your time to make it there. You have to put in the reps, and you have to work really, really hard. And you may not even make it. You probably won't. But the only way you're going to is to put in those reps. And you have to put in those reps with the knowledge that you might not make it there. And that is something that most people are not willing to do, and most people shouldn't be willing to do that because it's not something that most people can do. And over the next 10, 15 years, we're going to see this problem getting much, much worse, where you're going to see kids streaming from really young age, thinking they're going to be the next Shroud, be the next Ninja, be the next Ludwig, be the next Devin Nash, with no chance of succeeding whatsoever, because either they don't have the marketing knowledge to know that you cannot succeed on Twitch by just being on Twitch, don't have the commentary ability to actually create interesting content. They just play games and then they just expect the views to come in, which isn't going to happen. We are long past the point where you can become a successful streamer by just playing games online. That's not happening anymore. No one is succeeding like that. You have to be you have to be a content creator as well as being a streamer. Being a content creator isn't just a thing that's limited to doing video on demand content. If you're going to be a streamer, you have to plan your streams, and you have to make, you have to have some sort of structure. It doesn't have to be as structured as some people. You don't have to have, 15 past the hour, we're going to be doing this, and then at 30 past the hour, and then at the hour, we're doing this. You don't have to have it that structured, but you need to go into it having a plan. And even now, there's still a lot of streamers who are not they're not getting anywhere because they are still doing the same stuff they did 5 years ago, or maybe they had started recently, but they were doing what worked 5 years ago. And that's not going to work for most people. Unless you are a god at the game. If you're in the top, let's just use Osu for an example, because I played that for a long time. If you are in the top 1%, the top 0.1% of Osu players, you can create a successful stream around that. But most people not in that, that band of people. Most people don't have that level of talent. So you have to do something outside of your sheer ability to play the game to make the game interesting. And besides just doing games, a lot of the stuff that's really growing recently is the just chatting content. It's not just the thing that, the booby stream is doing. It's more than just those people who are doing it. There's lots and lots of creators who are doing the just chatting content, because that can be some of the most interesting content that you can produce. Because obviously, the game content can be fun, but usually when you're playing a game, the commentary will slow down. Whereas switching over to just chatting, that's where you see who is going to succeed and who is going to fail at the ability to talk. Or at the ability to make interesting content, I guess. Because if you cannot hold a conversation, maybe by yourself or with chat, and make an interesting stream when there is nothing else going on in the background, basically you will just completely fall apart. And that is why people like Devin, once again, recommending watching Devin's content, a really great creator. What he recommends is make YouTube videos. If you're going to be streaming, make stuff with the idea that it's going to become a YouTube video. Even if you don't explicitly go and make stuff off stream, do stuff on the stream that you can turn into videos. For example, if we go over to his channel again, for example, this right here, Gamers versus Joe Rogan, or Will Twitch Ever Make Money, with this picture of Pokimane on it, or, okay, that's just a stream there. Sometimes he will just go and upload big streams, but click to save gaming, or will these new platforms take over Twitch? I haven't watched this one all the way through. I should probably do that. Or is this the end of esports? All of this stuff that he's doing here, he did live while he was actually recording, while he was actually streaming. These are clips from the actual stream itself. I'll go back over here. Where'd it go? So we have how to get more views, what Obama's secret to positivity talk me, or Nintendo in the future of esports. All of this stuff came from the stream itself. But the way he structured his stream, he was like, okay, I'm going to do a talk right now. So it's sort of like you do a video inside of the stream, and you do that with the intention, one, of making interesting stream content, because most stream stuff is kind of, whatever's happening in the stream. But if you go and plan, say, I'm going to do a talk in the stream, and this is what is going to happen, then what you can do is take that with the intention, or plan that with the intention of turning it into a YouTube video, do it live, and then what you have two good things there. One is you have good stream content because you have a interesting talk that's happening in the stream. So people watching the stream are going to say, okay, this is a good stream. I like what's happening here. And if you do that frequently, then you'll frequently have, good streams that people can watch. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of other stuff that's more bland streamy stuff, but you still have parts of the stream which are really, really interesting. And some people are going to be like, hey, I want to be there to watch the talk happen live. And the other thing you get alongside of that is you also get video on demand content to put on your other platforms. And this takes us back to something that I mentioned earlier, which is about growing a stream and growing a YouTube channel. You cannot grow by being on Twitch. Well, how do you grow by not being on Twitch? Or another thing is with YouTube. You can grow on YouTube, but it's going to be much easier to be on other platforms as well. So how do you get content on other platforms if you're a streamer? Well, you make stuff during your streams that can be turned into video on demand content. And what you can do along with that, once you've uploaded it to YouTube, is you can also put it on other platforms as well. So this kills two birds with one stone. One is you get people looking at your stream content who are not on the streaming platforms. So that's one thing. That's two fingers. That's one thing. And two is you can then put that on other platforms as well. So you address the Twitch problem by putting content on YouTube. You address the YouTube problem by putting content on other platforms. And then you can, siphon people from the video on demand content on YouTube to those other video platforms. And those people on other video platforms may say, hey, I want to see this live, and then go to your Twitch. And this creates, it's not a loop, it's sort of like a horseshoe, I guess. I guess you can kind of loop it because they'd watch your stuff on YouTube, go to the alt platform, then they watch the stuff on the alt platform and say, hey, I like that, go to Twitch. Then maybe there's people on Twitch who can't watch a talk live, and they realize, well, I can go watch the video on demand version. And it creates this nice loop or this nice positive feedback loop of success. And I want to start streaming at some point, as you can probably see. I don't know when I'm going to start streaming, and the clips I'll probably end up putting on a second channel, I guess third channel, because I've got my main channel, my podcast channel, and then I'll have the third channel, which will be, Twitch talks and gaming stuff, whatever I decide to end up doing. But when I do start streaming, I'm going to be taking it as seriously as I take my YouTube stuff. I'm not just going to be, I'm going to play X video game today. I'm going to try to make interesting talks and try to make interesting content. And I feel like doing the YouTube stuff for like a year and a half before that is going to be a massive improvement over what would have happened if I had started out of nowhere. Because I've already got this experience talking for long periods of time and trying to make potentially interesting content where I can then take that idea and then basically just migrate it over to the stream. So I can take the skills that I've developed just making this regular video on demand content and then move it over to the stream. And you can probably see this actually happening in the podcast itself. This has been going for nearly 2 hours. This is a solo podcast that's been going for nearly 2 hours. That is insane. I didn't think I would ever be able to do this, but yeah. I still have those points where if I break what I'm saying, I might end up forgetting what I'm saying. But doing a talk like this wouldn't have happened 4 or 5 months ago. Like I don't know how I've done this today. This is the first time I've tried to do this long a solo podcast, but this is not something I would have been able to do if I didn't already have the experience trying to hold a conversation with myself through the production of the regular content I make. Without doing that, I wouldn't have had the ability to actually think on my feet anywhere near as well. Now, obviously the regular content is much shorter, but the thing with the regular content is you have to actually think on your feet a bit quicker, especially with the technical content. If I'm trying to say something very specific, I guess if I cannot structure that in a way that makes sense, I will not be able to make content that is informative in a technical way. The vloggy stuff I can kind of get away with doing the rambly stuff that I do in the podcast. But if I'm trying to do something more technical, then there's no way that I can really get around trying to make that flow in a very specific way. Or at least, maybe not a very specific way, maybe in a way that, I guess, pulls you through the video. If I'm trying to say something like, for example, a video I've got coming up soon, not coming up recently, is, I haven't recorded yet, but get a sneak peek, I guess. It's going to be called Open Source is Not Open Source. Basically, the idea is that open source software is different from the idea of open source code. And when people think of the word open source, they typically go towards the idea of the English definition, which means the source is open, you can actually see the source code. But if you say this to someone who knows about open source software and knows about free software, they'll think you're an idiot, because open source software and free software don't actually mean the same thing. Open source software and open source don't mean the same thing, which can get very confusing, because if someone says this application is open source, then someone who knows about open source software says no, it's not. There's a bit of a weird disconnect there. Because if I can see the source code, I would assume that means it's open source. But open source is actually more of a legal definition and a definition around the licensing rather than a definition specifically about the source code itself. But I'll get more into that in the video that I do about it. But the point I was getting at there... Once again, I forgot. This is... I said that I'm not perfect at this. This is one of those times when I'm not perfect at this. Probably great for the audio listeners. This happened too many times. This is what happens when I don't have anyone to bounce off. The one problem with doing solo stuff, you don't have anyone to bounce off, and you end up, losing what you're trying to say, and then the entire show falls apart. Something about interesting content and... I don't remember. What was I saying? There was a reason why I brought up that video, and it had something to do with creating good content on Twitch and right, that video. It was about technical content. Right, that's what I was trying to say. So in a video like that, I'm trying to pull the viewers along this, maybe, I guess the best way you could describe it is as a story. So I'm trying to say, okay, well, this is what you think open source software is, pull you through this idea of, okay, this is what open source software really is, how does that connect to free software, and then loop it all back together at the end with how you probably don't understand what open source software really means if you're someone coming from outside of this sphere. And this is something that's very important to actually making the content remain interesting. And it's not something you really get away from doing if you're trying to do the technical videos where you're trying to say something actually informative. Whereas with the vlog stuff, I can kind of, make it up as I go and make it sort of just flow however I really feel like. Obviously, I probably should have some sort of overarching story that does get wrapped up by the end of the video, but with the vloggy stuff, you can kind of get away with, shifting around stuff and jumping back and forth a bit more than you can with a video where you're trying to be technical and you're trying to specifically explain something in a way that makes sense. If all of that actually makes sense. So I think I'm going to wrap that up there because I forgot what the original point was. It was I know it led off of a thing that I was saying about Devin Nash and good Twitch streams, something like that, but I've kind of lost the original point. Yeah. One thing I will say is that if you're going to be doing talks like this on a stream, I would say write down what the original point of the talk was. I actually haven't been talking about points on my notes for about an hour now. This has kind of just been, me going off on some random tangent. So that's why we've got an extra hour of nonsense that's happened. Pretty much, I think the last thing I said, no, I guess there was a topic in there. There was a topic about Joe Rogan and video games. That's kind of where I led off of. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I was talking about this, because there was the idea that most people are growing up and trying to make streams, and they're going to be making it in the old way, or in a way that isn't going to be creating an interesting stream. Hopefully people, though, will grow out of this and not try to pursue this field not going to work, because otherwise you're going to have a bunch of people who end up being like 23, 24, who have never developed a single life skill in their entire life, and then be on the street, basically. Part of the reason why, even though I love doing what I'm doing now, I am actually finishing university. I'm in my final semester right now, and I'm going to finish it, because if this does fall through, then I still want to have that as a thing in my backlog. I can then go, okay, well, this is falling apart. I am going to build up my portfolio and then go get a dev job. Like, that shouldn't be that difficult. I've had a dev job in the past. I can use that and say, okay, well, yeah, I was just like, okay, well, I went and pursued something else, or I went and pursued I could even say I'm a software developer at a business. I won't say I'm the CEO. There's one thing. If you run your own business and you want to say that you're a software developer, don't say that you're the CEO. Say that you were like a developer on the team, because otherwise they'll say, why are you working here if you're the CEO of a company? That doesn't make any sense. What you want to do is say, I was the software developer at so-and-so company, even though you might have been the owner of the company and the only employee. If you were doing software development work and you're the boss, well, you're the boss. You can say whatever your title is. What are they going to say about it? The only problem with running your own business and doing that is then they're going to if they try to call your boss, you have to, you're your boss. You kind of got to work out a way to get around that. I'm not saying do anything, but there's ways you can think of to get around you being your boss and them trying to call your boss. But I'm not going to give you any ideas. You can work those ones out for yourself. So, do I have anything else I really want to hit on? Because it's been 2 hours now, and I've got some other stuff I do want to do today. I know I have. Okay, so I did this episode solo, but I might end up having to do next week's solo as well. The reason why I did this one solo is because of weird time zoning problems. So I had a guy who was going to come on called Bonehead Media, and he is a trucker, and he lives in America. So obviously being a trucker obviously will mess with when he's available, but also then being in an American time zone means there's going to be problems there as well. But the only time I'm probably going to be able to record with him is going to be on the weekend, and next weekend I'm going to be in my parents' place. So I won't be able to do that one, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe a solo one, or I don't know, that I might keep that one a secret. I could do something that could make a really interesting show that I haven't done any other time, but maybe that could be fun. I don't know. Maybe I try to, like, because I know my sister's going to be there. Maybe I do like a special episode of the podcast where I just do a episode with my family. That could be interesting. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll do that. That could be an interesting idea to do. I was thinking of saving that for like a special episode. It's going to be episode 24, which is not really that special of a number. Maybe I'd save it for like 50 if I really, really wanted to. But maybe that would be a bit of a break from, or it'd be better than having a second solo episode. But considering how this one went, it might not be the worst thing to do, because I still have a lot of topics I do want to cover on. And because I did a 2-hour episode today, maybe I can do another 2-hour one. I'll probably end up having to record it on Thursday, the something or other, whatever the date of Thursday is. So you're going to see this, or actually, this will probably, or the next episode will probably end up getting recorded the day that you end up seeing this on YouTube. So, oh, my shoulder now. So I'm thinking of maybe recording it then. We'll see what happens though. Because I don't want to be recording on the Friday, because I'm thinking of actually driving up to my parents on the Friday and then coming back on the Sunday. So if okay, so next week is either going to be an episode with my family, or it's going to be another solo episode. I'll decide what I want to do, but you'll see it when it happens, I guess. Or if somehow timing does work out properly, it will be an episode with Bonehead. And then the week after that is going to be the Mr. Robot episode, I hope, unless something falls through. And then I'm going to have a mate of mine who I've been trying to bring on for a long time, but he was having a lot of health problems, and it was just better to like let him recover from that first and then bring him on the show. So in 3 weeks, that episode's going to happen. Then after that, we're going to get back to probably having... I don't think I'm going to bring on after that. I could hit up Scammer Revolt. I know he watches my content, so I reckon I could get him on the show. If you don't know who Scammer Revolts is, awesome dude. He's got a fairly large YouTube channel. When I say fairly large, I actually do mean fairly large. So if we go... It's because he's got his fucking Zoomer thumbnails. Scammer rages when I delete his files. Raging Scammer locked out of his own PC. Like, These are the pinnacle Zoomer thumbnails. Scammer angry after losing all his files, and look at this thumbnail. It's got like the devil emoji and I don't know how he makes these thumbnails look so perfect. Like, obviously they don't look that complex, but they're all different. That's the thing. Even though they're not that complex, they are all different, and they're all different enough, but still in the same sort of style. So I reckon I could get him on the show, and he's got like 800k on YouTube. The only reason I reckon I could get him on the show is because I know he watches my content. There are some people I do want to hit up that I would love to get on the show. For example, I know Bill Altman follows me on Minds, and he did a podcast with Scott C Business back when Scott was still like a tiny creator. So I reckon I could get him on the show, but the fact is that my podcast is still tiny. I would love to do that, but it's still a tiny show. Maybe, I don't know. I might, there's some people I kind of want to bring on, but I also want to save it till we hit 10k on library, because we're pretty close to that. For example, I've been wanting to bring DistroTube on for a long time, but I wanted to have the show be a bit bigger before I do that. I want to bring on Kai Hendry as well. He has like 9k on YouTube, so his channel's only a bit bigger than mine. I reckon I could hit him up and get him to come on. And there's a couple of other people on library who I want to hit up, like Trav Crypto and people like that. Yeah, who I reckon all would be really fun. And I know that Trav will come on the show because I already asked him about it. I just need to ask him for a time. The other people I still need to actually hit up about coming onto the show. But I feel like, at least with Scammer Revolt, he will definitely do it. The others, I presume, will do it, because most people seem to be pretty willing to come onto a podcast, even if it's a fairly tiny one like I have, just because most people, at least that I've spoken to, don't seem to be that up their own ass that they are like, oh, I'm better than a podcast that has 8,000 subscribers on library, or I'm better than a podcast that has 151 subscribers on YouTube. Most people don't seem to act like that, which is awesome, because I didn't think that I'd be able to bring on some of the people I bring on. For example, like Scott C Business. I didn't think that, before I asked him, that he would ever be willing to come onto the show. But he was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Which is awesome. And I love that most people like that. So if you're not like that, become like that. And if you are like that, you're an awesome person. And I think that should be roughly everything I wanted to say. Yeah. I think I'll end it there before I end up, talking for another hour or so. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. Where's my list? Where's my patron list? It's still called the patron list, but it's the supporter list now. Okay. Make that floating. A special thank you to Joachim, Corbinian, Craig, Nathan, Andrew, Montazar, Peter D, Road, Tony, Donald, John, Michael. I think it's, he said Mikkel, but it's Danish name, so I'm going, he said in the message how he says to say it, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing the sounds in the message differently than the way he said it, because they weren't phonetic. It's not a phonetic spelling he gave me, it was Mikkel, so I'm going to assume it's probably Mikkel. I don't know. Anyway, Spagine, Thais, and Zilva. If you're watching this on YouTube, go watch it on library as well. If you're watching it on library, then check it out on YouTube. Or if you want the audio version is available anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. If you aren't subscribed to the main channel somehow and you found this show, then go subscribe to the main channel. That is Brody Robertson, and it's available on Library, BitChute, and a couple other platforms. Oh, obviously YouTube and other platforms as well. Go check out my blogs, which I haven't actually updated in a while, but I've got a blog on Minds and Read.cash as well. So go check those out if you want the rambly content. It's basically the podcast in a shorter form, in text form. So maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. So I think that's pretty much everything for me. I will play the intro to outro the show. Okay, yeah, that works. Once again, still need a better solution for this than what I'm doing, but it will work for now. So, thank you for watching.